The myriad feathered flock that haunt our sea-girt isle, as the poet has it. And as far as I'm concerned, he can keep it.
Quote, unquote. We present another edition of the quotation game devised and introduced by Nigel Rees.
Hello, welcome again to Quote Unquote, in which we explore various kinds of sayings, not only by the great and famous, but also from everyday life. Montaigne, the 16th century French moralist, said,
I quote others only the better to express myself.
So, expressing themselves better this week, we have our reader there, Ronald Fletcher, and our panel, John Lahr, Rula, Lenska, Wynford, Vaughan-Thomas, and Kenneth Williams. We begin with our hodgepodge of quotations for you to identify. They come from a variety of sources. Wynford, Vaughan-Thomas, do you know who said...
Somebody is boring me. I think it's me.
Oh, dear. Myself.
Somebody I think you were at school with, or at least attended...
Dylan?
Yeah.
It was Dylan, was it? But he said so many extraordinary things.
Dylan Thomas. Were you,
Yes.
in fact, at school with him?
Yes, I was a senior to Dylan, but it was the most wonderful school, totally permissive. And there came a wonderful occasion when the headmaster was a pioneer of the new education, allowed anything to happen. Dylan was sneaking out with a friend to go and play billiards. He didn't believe in the rest of the school. And the headmaster looked around and said, "Oh, where are you going?" And Dylan, putting a brave face, and he said, "Going downtown to play billiards. Any objection?" And the headmaster said, "Oh, you wicked boys. I hope you get caught."
Right, Dylan Thomas, attributed anyway. Somebody's boring me, I think it's me. Rula, Lenska. This is a piece of graffiti sent in by C.B. Horn of Great Milton, Oxford, who says it was scrawled on a large truck. Upon what well-known phrase or saying is it based?
Have wife, must travel.
Flying commercial, is it?
No, it's not.
Wait a minute.
You might remember it also as the title of a TV series a little while back, starring Richard Boone.
Oh, God.
Oh, well, it's based on the saying, "Have gun, will travel," which was the title of that TV series starring Richard Boone. The phrase, I think, originated in newspaper personal columns with people advertising their services as hired guns.
It's pointless offering that kind of thing to John and myself, because we would only remember quotes of any really literary value.
Well, we shall see about that, as John Lahr, we do indeed have a Shakespearean quote for you.
Dear.
Well, it's partly a Shakespearean quotation. Brevity is, I think you'd agree, the soul of a good quotation, but here, for its curiosity value, is a lengthy extract from an extraordinary speech. 2 questions, John. What is the Shakespearean reference at the beginning, and what is the speech about?
My very noble and approved good masters, my colleagues, my friends, my fellow students, in the great wealth, the great firmament of your nation's generosities, this particular choice may perhaps be found by future generations as a trifle eccentric. But the mere fact of it, the prodigal, pure human kindness of it, must be seen as a beautiful star in that firmament which shines upon me at this moment, dazzling me a little, but filling me with warmth and the extraordinary elation, the euphoria that happens at the first breath of the majestic glow of the new tomorrow.
What was the question again, Nigel?
Now then, there was a Shakespearean reference at the beginning there. My very noble and approved good masters. Now, do you know where that comes from? Do you know...
I have it on very good authority as to what the occasion was. Olivier at the Oscar presentation.
Yes, receiving his special award in 1979. And there's a Shakespearean reference at the beginning. My very noble and approved good masters.
Is it a tragedy or a comedy?
It's a tragedy.
Othello.
Othello, yes, well done, John.
Othello.
Yes, most potent, grave, and reverend seniors. It comes from that speech. Kenneth Williams, back to earth now. In the same year, 1979, who accused whom of...
Trying to wear the trousers of Winston Churchill.
You don't know. Shaking your head. It's not
Yes, I don't
Shakespeare.
know.
Could it be our present Prime Minister?
Indeed, it could.
Third,
Margaret Thatcher. Do you know what the occasion was?
It was referring to her very splendid speech about the common market, I think.
Do you know who said this? about her.
Jim Callaghan?
No, a bit further to the left. It was, in fact,
Mr. Heifer. Or
No. The Soviet Communist Party newspaper Pravda said it of Margaret Thatcher when she had rebuffed President Brezhnev's offer to withdraw 20,000 Soviet troops and some tanks from East Germany. Well, now, this one is for you, Wynford Vaughan-Thomas. Here's a phrase you hear used quite often. Who originated it?
In the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
I know it's a title of a short story by H.G. Wells.
Well, you need
But whether
go
he-
no further. I'll accept that.
Oh,
but-
he actually originated, I thought.
Well,
a brilliant problem.
I would accept that, or I've also seen it attributed to Erasmus, but I think...
Oh, I'm sure it was, but H.G. Wells used it.
Another extremely common phrase, almost proverbial for you, Rula, but do you know where it came from originally?
The course of true love never did run smooth.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yes. Do you know who says it?
Course of true love never did run smooth. Helena? No, Hermia.
It's like Lysander.
Lysander.
Anyway, I'll give you your
Here is
mark.
one of the four.
Near enough.
The words are spoken by Lysander, who's in love with Hermia, whose father has commanded her to marry Demetrius. The course of true love never did run smooth. This week's quotation from the Bertie Wooster stories by P.G. Wodehouse is for you, John Lahr. In this passage from Right Ho Jeeves, Bertie is tutoring Gussie Fink-Nottle in how to chat up Madeline Bassett. That's neither here nor there. What is the
Thank
line
goodness.
of poetry he refers to?
But what can I say about the sunset? Asked Gussie. Well, I said, Jeeves got off a good one the other day. I met him airing the dog in the park one evening, and he said, "Now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight, sir, and all the air a solemn stillness holds." You might use that. What sort of landscape? Asked Gussie. Glimmering. G for gastritis, L for lizard. Oh, glimmering. Yes, that's not bad. Glimmering landscape, solemn stillness. Yes, I call that pretty good.
Well, where had Jeeves got this from, John?
Gray's Elegy in a Country Churchyard.
Yes, indeed, they're from the second verse of Gray's Elegy in the Country Churchyard. Well done. What more can one say? Kenneth, do you know who once used this as the dedication to one of his books?
To my daughter Leonora, without whose never-failing sympathy and encouragement, this book would have been finished in half the time.
Well, give us a clue. I mean,
Well, not a million miles from what we've just been talking about.
what we've just been talking about with Gray's Elegy.
And before that, I think, in fact, on another occasion, Kenneth, you said that you didn't read the words, the books of P.G. Wodehouse, is that right?
That's
P.G.
right.
Wodehouse.
Yes, so you would never have discovered that this, in fact, was the dedication of one of P.G. Wodehouse's books, The Heart of a Goof.
No, I've never
You
read,
missed that one, did you, Kenneth?
I've never read this Woodhouse stuff.
Why,
never.
I would have thought you would have enjoyed that.
No, it smacks to me of something so utterly false, something so bogus. I don't believe any of it, you know. I've got to believe in something to like it. You know, I mean, I actually believe in the humorous writing, say, of that marvelous man who wrote Crazy Like a Fox.
Oh, S.J. Perelman.
Yeah, well, you believe in him. I believe in him. No matter how extravagant his lights are, I always go on believing.
Can I just tell you,
Oh, please
S.J., I'm mentioning Perelman, he has a terribly funny bon mot, if I can remember it, in a play called The Beauty Part. It goes, in the aristocracy of success, there are no strangers, which I think is a very, think about it. Think about it. It is, it's actually brilliant, but...
I don't know what about that. We had in my John the BBC in the early days an engineer who ruined half literature and proverbs with me by twisting them around. And for instance, I don't know what the original of the proverb is. You can't find a needle if you haven't got a haystack. And he's getting on like a horse on fire.
My mother, who has lived in this country for 25 years but still speaks Polish with a very strong accent, and she gets idioms back to front, and she says regularly things like, "Don't get your pants in the muddle." Or out of the frying pan into the serpentine.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Well, Bert Sheveloff, you know, when he said to me when I came to live in London, the little grocery shop on the corner, I got all my groceries there, and this little old lady, you know, she totted up how much money I had to pay, and then she said, "Bob is your uncle," and I said, "How on earth did you know?" I have an uncle called Bob.
Thank you, John, for taking us up that little...
Cul-de-sac.
charming cul-de-sac into foot-in-mouth territory. I ought to just pause and tell you that at this point the score stands with Kenneth... Gareth Williams having no marks at all for some reason. And I won't go into all the gory details, but Wynford Vaughan-Thomas is out front. Well done, Wynford. thank you if you've written to us on Quote Unquote. Here are some suggestions for what we call our quote table d'hôte, quotations about food and wine and restaurants and so on. KJ Small, or is it Smale, of Halstead, recalls that some years ago a restaurant opened just outside Bromley, of which a newspaper wrote,
Geographically, it's halfway between Elmer's End and Pratt's Bottom. Gastronomically, it's about the same.
And those are real place names, I do assure you. Mrs. Mary Button of Herne Bay saw advertised,
English teak and kidney.
Sarah Squires saw this in a London Chinese restaurant.
Tasteful chicken in paper bag.
And to round it all off, Mrs. V. Ellison of Durham saw that a pub was offering
Sherry trifle and randy snaps.
Thank you for those. And now, on any subject, not just food, I'm going to ask the panel if they have a favourite quotation. Let's have a serious one, Kenneth. Do you have a serious quotation?
But my favourite of all, yes, is the end of the Motley biography of William the Silent. And he says, while he lived, he was the guiding star of a whole brave nation. And when he died, the little children cried in the streets. And that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever read.
Super. John Lahr.
I did it very well.
Yeah, no. Thank you, Kenneth. That was super. John Lahr, do you have a favourite quotation?
I come from a family of worriers, and my wife ran in with this quote one day, and it sort of made me take notice. It's from Mark Twain, who said, I have known many sorrows, most of which never happened at all. And apropos of that, my father, who was the sort of legendary worrier, used to say to me, John, the light at the end of the tunnel may be an oncoming train.
This was your father, Bert Lahr.
That's right.
You've got a theatrical one, haven't you, Rula?
Yes, I have. Well, I'm sure many actresses have a lot of advice given to them when they're starting about what to do and what not to do. I was told that I should change my name, that I should change my voice, that I should, lots of different things like that. But one of my favourite quotations is Dame Edith Evans, who said, as a young actress, I always had a golden rule. If I didn't understand anything, I said it as if it was improper. And if you think about a handbag, it rather sounds as if you spotted something the dog did on the garden.
Wynford, Vaughan-Thomas, do you have a favourite quotation?
Well, I have many. I always liked Arthur Hugh Clough's famous poem about money, which sums it all up, doesn't it? Especially in these days of inflation and the rest of it. He wrote a splendid piece called How Pleasant It Is to Have Money, Hey-ho. How pleasant it is to have money. Bring on the champagne and damn the expense. I've seen it observed by a person of sense that the labouring classes would not last a day if fellows like us didn't eat, drink and pay. How pleasant it is to have money. How pleasant.
Well, back to the quiz now, and to some nicknames of people and institutions. When we mentioned some time ago that Sir Malcolm Sargent used to be called Flash Harry, Mrs. H. Muir of Westerham wondered whether we knew that Sir Alexander Gibson, the musical director of the Scottish Opera, acquired the nickname
Flash Haggis.
Now then, Wynford, Vaughan-Thomas, to whom is applied the nickname or sobriquet?
The Steel Magnolia.
The Steel Magnolia. Not Ms.
The first lady?
Carter. A Carter.
Yes.
A Carter.
Which Ms. were you going
Carter.
to say?
Mrs. Carter. One of the Mrs. Carter.
The young one or the older?
Oh, I think I'd pick the old one? The old one.
No, it's the young.
They didn't shout loud enough.
No, this is Rosalind Carter, the wife of President Carter, as opposed to the other one, who's Ms. Lillian, the Steel Magnolia. Rula, Lenska, under what nicknames are these two gentlemen better known?
Robert Leroy Parker and Harry Longbaugh.
Leroy is obviously the same country as the Steel Magnolia. Yes. You will know their names, their nicknames, extremely well.
What sort of area are they? Are they entertainers?
Well, not so much south as west.
No, I'm not talking about geographically.
Well, I'll give you a huge clue.
that right? Cassidy, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yes, these are the real names of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance
Oh, we get the
Kid.
marks for that.
Yes, you do. Parker Cassidy, or Parker or Cassidy, whichever name he was using at the time, was called Butch because he'd once been a butcher, it says here. And,
Because he'd once been Butch? Butcher. Oh, Butch.
and
Because he'd once been Butch.
Longbow was called Sundance because he once carried out a bank raid in the town of Sundance, Nevada. John Lahr, to whom was applied the nickname or sobriquet
Tum Tum.
Tum Tum?
Yes. A corpulent person. He had various other nicknames. Old Peacock was another. Teddy. Bertie.
Yes.
Yes, we know,
Bertie.
we
We
know.
know Bertie.
All right, Rula, who is it?
Edward, the Prince of Wales, said Edward the Seventh.
Edward the Seventh,
Yes.
as was, yes. Other names which have been suggested for Edward the Seventh, I think, include Edward the Caresser and Edward the Peacemaker, and the peace he made was Lily Lancashire. Thank you, Arthur Askey, for that one. Kenneth Williams, who or what is known as
The Big Apple.
I think it was always Oh, he just keeps writing down New York or something. It's the Big Apple is this organisation run by the Beatles, isn't it?
Well, you're quite right. They used to have a thing called the Apple Corporation, or the Apple Corps. But John Lahr was quite right when he was writing down New York. Do you know why it's called the Big Apple, John?
We call it the shrinking apple. Now, no, I don't.
Well, the explanation I've had given to me is that it suggests that it's something that's ripe for plucking, full of opportunity, which, of course, New York is. Well, so to titles of films, books, plays, titles which are, in fact, quotations, and I want to know where they come from. Wynford Vaughan-Thomas, there was a play and later a film by Willis Hall called
The Long and the Short and the Tall.
Well, I'd better not sing that. had I?
Well, sing us a bit of it, go on.
Well, we used to sing it coming back on an aircraft over Berlin, which began, "There's many a Lancaster back from Berlin, bound for old blighty shore, carrying its cargo of terrified men, scared and prone on the floor." And it ended up, for heaven's sake, give Margate as our next target. And as for Berlin, bless them all.
Well,
The long and the short and the tall.
Based
It's an army song, great army song.
based on the song Bless 'Em All, yes.
I knew that too.
We've got the general area of it, and the long and the short and the tall, the play was set in Malaya. Rula Lenska, King Hussein of Jordan, it's a quick switch this, no connection with the previous question, once wrote a book, and he gave it inevitably perhaps the title,
Uneasy Lies the Head.
now where does that come from?
Excuse me, my professor's just writing it down for me.
Any idea? But
Richard II, isn't it?
not Richard II,
No, it's Richard the Third.
not Richard III,
It's
Macbeth.
It's Shakespeare.
no, it's
Well,
from-
come on, tell us who it is.
Judas
Stop hanging it out.
It's from Shakespeare's Henry IV, Part 2.
Henry IV.
And it's said
Says
by
when he
Henry IV
went-
himself, unable to sleep with
Yes,
and
that's
bearing
right,
all the
Strauss was
responsibilities. No marks, no marks. John Lahr, Joe Orton, whose biography you wrote a radio play called...
The Ruffian on the Stair.
Why did he call it that?
From a poem by a Victorian poet called W.E. Henley. I don't think I can give it to you. Madam, life's a piece in bloom, death goes lurking everywhere, she's the lady in the room, he's the ruffian on the stair.
Yeah, death goes dogging everywhere. She's the tenant of the room, he's the ruffian on the stair. Well done, yes.
He had, in it, there's a wonderful line where an Irishman, the hero is describing what is obviously a homosexual experience, and an Irishman, very outraged, says, "There's no word in the English language for what you've been doing," and the retort is, "In Lapland, they have no word for snow."
Was Joe Orton the sort of person who would have read W.E. Henley?
Oh yes, very definitely. He was a superbly informed writer, very, very knowledgeable.
Right, we're all going home to read it now. Kenneth Williams, the title of a Noel Coward film for you. A listener, Mrs. Rowena O'Hay of Brighton, wrote in to ask us where it came from. Where does this title come from?
In which we serve.
Can you give her the answer? Apart from me, she wants to know.
No, you'll have to tell her.
Well, I will. I'm doing it now. Save a stamp. Anybody? Wynford, do you know?
It's not one of those things that the Admiralty issue the Royal Navy instructions.
No.
Shall we take
No,
it?
in fact, it's from the prayer book, in the forms of prayer to be used at sea, and it ends up, most gracious protection of the persons of us, thy servants, and the fleet in which we serve. Now, finally, it's time for us to hear some eavesdroppings, peculiar things overheard. And Mrs. Inoni Connor of Ashted overheard two women in a cafe who'd clearly been listening to this program. One said to the other,
It's funny, but Ronald Fletcher sounds quite different on That's Life.
if you don't understand that, well, we won't go into it. Wynford, do you have an eavesdropping?
I've got two. One, a friend of mine in Fishguard, I was saying, what about eavesdropping? And he said, well, during the war, I was running for shelter when the air raid siren went, and suddenly I heard a voice shout, come on, Grandpa, come on, Grandpa. And his grandpa's voice said, hey, I can't find my teeth. They're dropping bombs, not ham sandwiches. And leaning against the bar at the Savile Club before I came here, I said, look, you must give me some eavesdropping. And a marvellous journalistic friend of mine said, well, there was a beauty the other day. But he was, as always, on the top of a bus. And there were two women in front of him, and one said, he was terrible, terrible. He put his hand up my skirt. You know, the Jaeger one with pleats.
Now, Rula, Lenska, do you have something you've overheard, or?
Yes, mine isn't neither funny nor smutty. It's rather sweet. Being slightly baby-obsessed at the moment. I've got one. It's not that I'm trying to get one, but I've got one. Anyway, this young girl was looking after a child who was about 4 years old, and they'd installed one of those two-way baby alarm systems with a speaker in the child's room and downstairs, and you could communicate from downstairs. And the child woke up in the middle of a dinner party, and the young girl said, Johnny, are you all right? Silence. Johnny, are you all right? Silence. So she thought she'd better go up the stairs. Complete silence. She's just about to open the door when she hears, what do you want, Wall?
John Lahr, no, your turn, John.
It's just apropos of babies again. I came into a room just after the playwright Harold Pinter had left it, and there was a mother trying to explain to her 4-year-old boy who that man was, and she said, he's a very good writer. And the little boy looked up and said, can he do a W?
Shirley Jaffe of Little Gadsden, who's a listener, reports overhearing two old ladies talking in a queue outside or inside Marks and Spencer's. One said,
I always have to take a Valium before I go to Sainsbury's.
Kenneth Williams, do you have an eavesdropping?
Yes, I was told this by Sally Baxter, and he said he got this taxi, and he didn't just come back from holiday, he got this taxi from the station, and this driver slid the glass partition back and said, did you see Harold Wilson on the telly then? We said, no, I've just come back, I've been abroad. Oh, you didn't see him? Oh, you should have seen Harold on the telly last night. Got his own chat show now. Marvellous he was. Very frail, hello, well met.
Oh, well, there you are. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings and people you overhear.
The most marvellous one out of the mouths of babes was when Maggie Smith told her child, Chris, to eat the food. And he said, I don't want to eat it. She said, don't waste food. Don't leave it. Eat it. She said, what is it? She said, it's a potato in its jacket. And he said, I don't care if it's its trousers.
Well, there we are. Thank you very much for those. At the end of the quiz, well...
I suppose I've got nothing.
Yes, you've got nothing. Again, and well, you usually win, Kenneth. You usually win. But this week, without a doubt, Wynford Vaughan-Thomas has got the lot. If you want to contribute to Quote Unquote, drop a line to me, Nigel Rees, Quote Unquote, BBC Broadcasting House, London W1A 4WW. We're giving copies of the Quote Unquote paperback to the final 2 letters we read out on the programme. This week, they go to 2 pieces of graffiti with which we leave you. John Fox from Crewe spotted this erudite scrawl not a million miles from the Royal Shakespeare Theatre in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Yorick is a numbskull.
And Andrew West of Ipswich found this in a youth hostel in Ireland.
But for Venetian blinds, it would be curtains for all of us.
Goodbye.
Taking part in Quote Unquote this week were John Lahr, Rula, Lenska, Wynford, Vaughan-Thomas and Kenneth Williams. The quotations were read by me, Ronald Fletcher. The programme was devised and introduced by Nigel Rees and produced by Alan Nixon.